What's up? It's Wednesday, and it is time to talk prepping. Time to talk survival. Time to talk what the heck is going on in the world. This is our February reality check. So we're going to talk about some current events, some crazy things. And as always, this is Scott, and I've got Paris and Shane in the house. And we are live. We do this every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. What's happening, guys?
Yo. Freezing my butt off in my garage, honestly.
How's that area heater working for you?
It's a big garage for a little heater.
Yep. That's typically the problem. I'm sure you've got other resources you could find to heat that place, right?
Just noisier resources. Yeah. I need to start a little earlier.
If anybody's got gear, it's Shane, and he's the one that has every knick-knack, cranny, and thing that needs to be done. He's got stuff. In our last episode, I am kind of revealing here for those that are going to have to wait to listen on Tuesday, but he pulled something out that was like old from years ago, and I'm like, bro, you still have that? That was crazy. Anyways, there's so much going on right now. Like, that's the crazy thing. We were like, we had a really good response to the last time we did the reality check, and lots of listeners, tons of downloads. And so we're like, you know what, maybe we should make that a regular monthly thing where we talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the world and our thoughts and opinions about it, because there's just so much happening. We could spend probably every episode on it, but we want to at least touch on it regular enough because it seems like it's popular. So hopefully you guys like the last one we did and you like this one.
And as always, we always want to hook up our favorite friends with cool gear. So if you guys want to go check out survivalfrog.com, they have some tasty treats for you. There's some sample packs of the long-term food storage meats. They got chicken, they got ground beef, and then they've got shredded beef. And we've tried it and tested it. It is delicious. And honestly, use the code PrepperTalk, save another 10%. It's worth it.
Yep. Yeah, and come join us over on Emergency Prep at Self-Reliance on Facebook. And always a lot of good conversations going on over there. Feel free to post whatever questions you have. We'd love to answer questions. That's one of my favorite things to do. So love to hear from you there.
So tonight, with what's going on in the world, would you guys elevate the threat level of your peace and tranquility, or would you keep it steady state from kind of the last few months?
Well, it's kind of funny. I was watching a podcast with Jordan Peterson, obviously,
of course,
and it was Impact Theory. And Impact Theory, I can't remember the guy's name. I'm sorry, but that was the name of the podcast. And the guy asked Jordan Peterson. He says, with all the things that are going on in the world, they have this thing called the Doomsday Clock. Mm-hmm. And where do you think? He said, experts are saying that we're like a few minutes before midnight and some other things. And so he asked Jordan Peterson what he thought about the Doomsday Clock and where we might be, and if we're moving closer to midnight. And of course, in Jordan Peterson style, he has to explain a bunch of things before he gets around to saying yes or no. But he just was like, with what's going on in the world today, there's some crazy stuff that I wouldn't doubt it if we're closer to midnight than we were before. So that's real. There's just never before in the history of our country have we had a president that has done more to destroy our country than the one that we have right now. And I'm not just, that's not hyperbole or whatever that word is. That's like, you can just go and fact check that, fact checkers, because that's realistically what's happening.
Yeah, I think if I were to put a DEFCON level to our status right now, I'd put us at DEFCON 2, honestly. Some people would probably say realistically more like DEFCON 3, but we're definitely not 4 or 5. There's, no way. Realistically, we're probably at 2. We're not told. Nobody knows. I think there's a website out there that estimates where DEFCON would be, and I think it actually puts us at DEFCON 3 right now. I haven't checked it for a little while, but I would say
DEFCONlevel.com says 3.
Okay, yeah.
That's
I don't believe that.
Warning 2024. And it's funny because something that could be happening on the other side of the world that doesn't affect 90% of us or more, they'll make that a major contributing factor, even though it's not. And so I agree with you. I don't buy into all that. There are definitely things going on that make me thoughtful about the actions I'm taking in the next year to 3 years on what I'm going to do with my time, where I'm going to focus my energies. You know, disposable income, as we all know, the cost of living, especially the cost of eating, is going up crazy high. The disposable income shrinking, and so it's like, okay, what am I going to spend that extra fund money on? Well, more food, right?
Well, yeah, there's the CPI, I guess, last week, and this is called the CPI, as it's referred to by others many times. It's not really it's a bad measurement. It's a poor measurement, and but it went up. I mean, and that's the point, is that is higher than it was last month, and so inflation continues to go up, and typically inflation it rises and falls. It doesn't constantly go up, right? We're not going to go straight to hyperinflation. I think we will eventually, but the reality is inflation is headed back up again. And why? Because of money printing. I mean, I think recently the currency supply has increased again. There are people who track those things, and for a while it was turning downwards, and now it's headed back up again. You know, and do we know why? I could guess. I can give you a lot of guesses, but it's headed back up again. So inflation is coming back.
Well, and what's interesting is a lot of it is falseflation, right? So the reason I call it that is because, like, okay, let's just hop in the car, drive down to McDonald's or Wendy's and buy lunch. How much did you spend 2 years ago buying a burger at one of these joints? A whole combo, burger, fries, and a drink.
I did the math actually on Taco Bell, so I don't know about burgers, fries, and a drink. Sorry.
Okay. Well, 2 years ago, buying Wendy's, I could buy a whole meal and upsize it to the largest and still spend less than $10. In 2 years, it's now $20.
Wow.
If I upsize. If I don't upsize, it's $17. And I like to do the Dave's Double. Or I should say, I used to like to do the Dave's Double. Well, Wendy's just announced that the inflation that's been so damaging to the entire Western world and all their markets has given them record profits.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at all their competitors, like McDonald's, which isn't real food either. Like, it's even worse. These things are indicators of the economy, but they're also indicators of the racketeering, the profiteering that they're
corporate
doing
greed
off of our problem, our situation that they've helped create, right? And they're just making it worse, and they're all announcing that their prices are going to continue to go up. So, what was your numbers on Taco Bell? It's my wife's favorite place.
It was crazy because I would go in to buy. My daughter loves their quesadillas, and so we went in to buy a quesadilla, and I remember spending $1 and change for a quesadilla. I don't remember all she would get us a freeze and everything else. So it ended up being $6 or $7.
Mm-hmm.
The last time we went to Taco Bell, I think she added like their little, I don't know what they're called. They're Cinnabons or whatever, but $17 for one quesadilla, one drink, and a couple Cinnabons. And I was like, that was $6 or $7 last year, a couple years ago. Like I was just like, and when the quesadilla went from $1.50 to $3, I was freaking out. And so when it went from $3 to whatever it is now, like $5, I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, this is ridiculous.
Well, we can see what's happening to the not just the used car market, but the new car market right now. It's in collapse. These large corporations, I won't name them, but you know who they are, have raised their prices 50%, 60% in the last 3 to 4 years because they can, right? Because they feel that there's just everything is going so well, the economy is so good that we can just raise our prices. And now what's happening? They can't hardly give these things away. They have to discount them and offer zero low interest rates, which is the only way people can afford to buy them nowadays, because interest rates for a vehicle are in the teens now for average credit. I
won't even look. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
I don't have to. I don't even want to have to look, because I'm happy with what I got. We did well, but
well, it's funny because
it's a mess.
if you look at what people are spending at lunch, or what people are spending at dinner, if they eat out, like you're going to price yourself out of the entire world right now, right? But if you're being savvy and buying in bulk when you can at the grocery store, and you're making your own meals, you're always going to save money. It's always going to be less expensive
and better food.
When you're buying all the processed stuff, it's going to cost more. But that's just one of tonight's topics. Like, we could go crazy. Like, let's talk cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck just happened last week? And we still don't fully know. Like, many of you had your phones not working for half the day, many longer. And I've talked to some people who had radios and had satellite radios that weren't working, but their actual radios were working, and anything that was using GPS wasn't working. Anything using Messenger wasn't working. They couldn't get their internet. It's like we surveyed our group to see kind of who had outages, and it was a large majority of our group that responded that they had outages or family members that were affected by it. And so it's funny to me because it's like, that's how simple a little hiccup in life is, that for some people become major communication issues. Becomes a major issue. Some people couldn't do work anymore because they're working remote, and all those systems now didn't work.
Well, this has been something that the media has been talking about for quite a while. It's been a hot button. And so to see this happen, what do I think? I think it was a test, right? I think it was, either a true cyber attack or an actual test. Hey, let's see, let's shut these down. I don't know how that works. I'm not even going to pretend to know how that works, but
you sent it.
It's nefarious.
Was it you that sent me that TikTok, Scott, about that guy who was like looking out the window and he's like, hey, I think this and maybe that. And he's like, just think for a minute. This was supposed to be an AT&T issue on one of their towers. So why did an AT&T issue affect all these other carriers? It seems highly suspicious that it was something that was just for AT&T should have only affected the AT&T customers, not everybody else on other carriers. And I was like, so he was saying that, when you travel between towers, there's a potential there that they downloaded, uploaded, they did something where if you're in a variety, let's say you're in a different, cell service, but you're tapping into one of their towers, you just got whatever they did in your phone now. And maybe it was one of those, keystroke recording, bugs or viruses where now they can get your passwords to all your bank accounts or whatever. This was all this speculation of this guy. And I was like, it's definitely something to be watchful and thoughtful about. And then I watched the podcast from Patrick Bet-David, which is the Valuetainment. And he had, I think he said that he had the guy who was the head of, what's the military group? Is it Blackwater? Mm-hmm. The military? Yeah, they're a contractor?
Yeah.
So he had one of he said he was the head of Blackwater, and he says, what do you think happened? What do you think happened? Head of Blackwater. The guy's got like $1.6 billion, $2 billion in government contracts. 1.6 billion of them are like confidential. He can't say anything to anybody about them. You know what I mean? That like this guy's got some clearance, right? He's got some high level of clearance. He said 70% chance it was China attacking us. Mm-hmm. Like that was his thought. And I was like, dang.
Yeah. I mean, there was also, conveniently timed. There were also solar flares supposedly at the time. So there are some channels that say, yes, it was definitely a solar flare, and some that say, no, it couldn't because it was on the other side of the world when that it affected at the time that the outage was here in the US. And so I think it's just like everything else. It's confusion. It's mixed messages. It's this, no, it's that. And so nobody can really pin down or blame anything on the outage.
It's right? A bird.
It's still
a plane.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know what the heck it is. I don't know. It's a UFO. So it's very, very suspicious, if you ask me. So
totally. Like I just was so Patrick Bet-David had like a 20-minute rant after he talked about that. Like, what do you think we should do if that really happened? Like let's say it was China and it was like, hey, this is what we can do. You guys better watch out. Like, what should we do as Americans? Like we should, what are your thoughts if you're listening? Like if that was an attack, a cyber attack from a foreign entity, like what should we do as a country to retaliate? And do you believe that Biden would do anything, even if it was something like that? Like, that's where we are right now. That's where we are with our country. Like, I bet you China's like, hey, look, if we're ever going to do it, now's the time, because the leadership over there is not going to have the whats to get us, back.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
So what day did that happen? What day did the phones go down?
I don't
remember at this point.
Tuesday or Wednesday, was it?
Was it Wednesday or Thursday last week? Wednesday?
I thought it was the 22nd. Was that Wednesday? The reason I ask is because, did you guys see
that was Thursday?
5,000-pound satellite that went down?
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it was all over the news for about a day and then disappeared, because then all of a sudden, all the news was about cell phones going down all over the United States.
Interesting.
There's a ERS-2 satellite that fell through the atmosphere and landed in the ocean right outside of Hawaii, basically. Well, not right outside of Hawaii, but basically I was watching this thing and learning about this thing, and then all of a sudden, all the articles disappeared. I couldn't find them on the news feeds anymore. It was old news because all the new things that are happening. And it's funny because one of our commenters said predictive programming. It's like, yeah, whenever something happens, there's a distraction. And I feel like this was one of those things. Distracting us from something else that's going on. So the question then becomes, what else is going on in the world around this last time? Like, this was one of the more busy months in weird things in my recollection.
Yeah.
I mean, these are just a couple of the topics we've talked about so far, but you guys in the comments loaded up, like, what are some of the weird things that you've seen or you're tracking? I mean, we record payoffs going to Ukraine as usual, record changes all over the world, but like, it's weird.
So here's one that my brother told me about earlier today, and he's probably listening. So thanks for sending this over, because it's great material for this topic. Is apparently there's one of the worst fires in Texas, and my brother is from Texas, and he says, he's like, bro, there's this huge fire in the panhandle of Texas, or in the whatever it is. And he's like, I'm literally waiting for reports to come out of videos where the houses with blue roofs weren't burnt, but everything else was. And he's like, think about the fact that, what has Texas been doing lately to the government? They've been giving them the middle finger, and they've been saying, no, we're not going to follow through on this stupid border, open border thing that you're doing. We're going to put up barbed wire. We're going to put guards there. We're going to stop people from crossing and invading our country. And the government's like, no, go down, sending the National Guard in there to undo whatever Texas is doing. And Texas is like, no, we're going to go back through and redo what you undo that we did. Anyways. And so now all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but you know what I'm talking. Everybody who has an eye to see and an ear to hear knows that they're getting they're getting back. This is their retaliation, in my opinion, to Texas, what Texas is doing to say no to this whole thing. And they're saying, with wildfire, they did it a couple years ago when Texas was defying them, and they had that snowmageddon where they had all the freeze. Now they're doing it with fires. It's like, guys, it's just too. There's no such thing as coincidence. Like, it just. Like,
bro, especially when it involves our government, right? And it seems to me like that's one of the things that popped out to me this last month, that topic is not just that topic, but the border itself is getting more attention in the mainstream media, in the regular channels. Whereas before it was just being kind of ignored, and it seems like that's finally stepping up. And talk about reality check. I heard that today New York finally got out with this statement saying, you know what, we don't want any more illegals. We can't handle it. This is chaos. And New York is very chaotic because of because they no longer want to be a sanctuary city. So talk about reality check. That's a reality check right there. Like, oh, we can do whatever we want. No, there are ramifications for everything you do. So it's that is not going away. I also heard that crime is dropping in Venezuela. And you know why? Because it's coming here. The gang members are coming here, have been shipped here. And so that's why the crime is dropping there. And I wouldn't doubt that that's happening in other Central America, South American countries as well.
Well, we already know that different aid groups are giving away maps and money for people to get here, and they're definitely
Showing the
crime
path.
syndicates and men of a certain age from certain countries around the world that are coming in higher numbers than
Mhm.
refugees, right? There's definitely more than what meets the eye. And this is where the reminder to everyone is critical thinking. Don't just take everything by the spoonful or the mouthful that the news or the media tries to tell you. Dig into it. Find out.
Well, here's a perfect example. So Peter Schiff, who's an economist, now he doesn't get everything right, but the guy's got a really good track record. He's one guy that he has a good track record. He says recently, a couple of days ago, he says, CNBC just reassured its viewers not to worry about the excessive concentration of market cap in just a handful of stocks. It's happened before, once with the Nifty 50 in the 1960s, and again during the tech bubble of the 1990s. Wow, that's great. That sounds like good news. If it's happened before, it should be okay. We should be fine. And then he
but
says,
what happened after that?
exactly what Peter says. Of course, there was no mention of what followed, which was huge recessions, huge financial collapses, and economic stress and strains. It's like, come on, people. Like, it's like if you can take a period of time and you can dress it up and put a lipstick on it, but at the end of the day, it's still a pig. So I think Peter Schiff makes a great point here.
I'm a big fan of Peter. Absolutely. He gets a lot of things right. But, a few other things that have popped up that, again, kind of becoming more mainstream in the media is the U.S. debt, household debt, credit card debt, all those types of things. I seem to be hearing more about that, whereas before they're trying to just kind of not talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like everything is building up to something here soon. And, we hear the dates of March 1st, March 11th, when certain programs are going to end and such. And that's like doomsday, or, that never pans out, right? When a date is set, or given and estimated, nothing ever happens. But at some point it will, right? At some point that reality will set in.
And we had a lot of those last year, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't change. They keep bringing up new dates to create new fears. And that's what it is. It's a fear game. And if they get you afraid, you focus on those fears, and that feeds the fire that they're burning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's never been a better time than right now to get prepared, except for yesterday. Right? The beautiful thing about life is it keeps going on until it doesn't. So you've still got time today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about the future. Prepare for it. And if you have a plan for one major disaster, it will compound across every type of scenario to benefit your family. And that's, I think, the key that most people forget is they'll jump into prepping because they're worried about one thing, and then they'll get so distracted by something else because it's in the news, or something else because it hits the news, and it'll get them off course of the primary thing that they're focusing on.
Yeah, that one thing doesn't happen, and so they forget it. Never prepping is workless. No,
and they give up.
And then they see, oh wow, Bitcoin actually touched 64,000. Is that right? Briefly broke the all-time record. Oh, and say, things are good, and the stock market, it's been down the last couple of days, just barely, right? But that always happens before at a top, right? It's always the highest before it comes down. And, and of course, I see what's happening with Bitcoin and what are the reasons behind it. Of course, there's some new ETFs and so forth, but why is it going up so dramatically here in just this week, really, in the past several days? If you ask me, it's pump and dump. It's the whales, the people that own it, they want to get out of it because they truly know that it's not worth anything. Sorry to deflate some of your beliefs out there that crypto can actually be a liberating currency rather than the US dollar. I don't agree with that at all. But, it's time to get out at the high points, right? Paris, I know you were looking to get out. If you, right now is an awfully good time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got out a while ago.
Fortunately,
I got out a while ago. Unfortunately, I got out a while ago because I would have rather got out when it's much higher. I'd have had more money, but Yeah, totally. I agree with you. I think that, as you talked about the whales and the pump and dump, the people who are making a killing off of these issues they know something. And the reason why I was watching a podcast today where they mentioned that, billionaires
Mhm.
are buying bunkers and
Mhm.
underground safety locations in droves, like crazy amounts. They're
And
just
selling
blowing up.
stock.
In fact, the Hollywood, what's it called? The Hollywood Reporter says this is the headline: Billionaire survivalist bunkers go absolutely bonkers with fire remotes and water cannons. So not only are they buying them up like crazy, they're doing like all these zombie apocalypse type things to protect them and to keep them safe. Well, listen, if you know anything about what the World Elite do, they usually are trying to stay ahead of certain things that the World Elite are planning. And so I'm like, okay, why are all these billionaires, again, here's the conspiracy theory and a guy and me again going, if all these billionaires are buying these, what do they know that we don't know? And so that's something to, I think, at least to pay attention to. I'm not too worried about it because I know that I can survive. I've got my community. Whether
Don't need
you're,
a bunker
I don't need a huge, I mean, it would be super cool to have a bunker. Are you kidding me? Like
for the heck of it. Yeah.
that'd be awesome, but I don't need
Also,
that.
Paris, they're these billionaires and CEOs and are selling stocks, by the billions, millions and millions of shares at the
So
top
here's
of the market, if you ask me.
my theory is in line with Revelation 6:15, which says that the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains because they feared the Lord.
Mhm.
That's what's coming. Like
I love that.
we forget that, like, there's doomsday stuff, right? There's disasters. I'm more focused on emergency preparedness from a disaster scenario than I am a natural disaster scenario, than I am a man-made disaster. But if I'm preparing for one side, it's also helping towards the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm preparing for the apocalypse for dang sure. The
Mhm.
apocalypse has already started. And the apocalypse is a term basically talking about the great awakening and everyone knowing what the heck has been going on this whole time right before somebody huge shows up on the scene, aka our Lord and Savior. And
Mm-hmm.
then all these bad guys are like, yeah, I'm staying in my bunker forever. Yeah, well, because you just got buried, right? You're done. He's coming
That's
home. He's
right.
like, you're grounded and
That's
you're
right.
grounded and you're grounded, right? And
Yeah.
so I have so
They're
much
hiding.
joy.
Isaiah talks about that too. I know that read it out of Revelations, but Isaiah talks about how they want to hide themselves in the rocks and the clefts and
Mhm.
the caves, if you will, and that could be easily interpreted as Isaiah looking forward into the future, seeing a vision as these bunkers. I could see
Yeah.
that for
Mhm.
sure.
Well,
Well, there's like,
governments, they're prepared with their bunkers as well. And not just the wealthy. I mean, there's an extensive underground world out there that we know very little about.
Oh yeah, the deep underground military bases and all the
Mhm.
different. There's so many truther videos out there about revealing their tunnels and everything else.
Mhm.
There's even maps saying, and I don't really know how to confirm this, but I believe it because it just makes sense that. But they say that there's maps where you could pretty much get to anywhere in the country from anywhere in the country,
Underground.
all underground. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I've heard that for a long time, and no way of verifying it. But hey, get me underground. I'll go check it out.
it's funny
Right.
because I've actually talked to a couple truckers who have driven underground from Washington to Denver, the Denver
What?
International Airport, driven underground all the way from Washington, D.C. to the Denver International Airport. And I've asked them, can you tell me anything about it? And they're like, no. I'm like, you can't, who were you driving for? Can't tell you. What were you delivering? Can't tell you. And I'm like, but you drove all the way. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, how can you prove that? But I've had multiple drivers that I've talked to that have admitted that. And I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. I've also met drivers that delivered to a facility in Missouri where they drove overground everywhere and they got to the location and then they drove underground
Mm-hmm.
into this facility and they said that went for miles and miles and miles and it's just storage for a specific company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, that's really easy to believe. The longer ones, that's kind
Yeah.
of like is that real or not? And so I'm like, I don't know if I trust those two drivers.
Yeah, but there have been plenty of stories all over
interesting.
the U.S., the world about strange booms. Strange noises.
Mhm.
They don't know where they're coming from. It could very well be coming from underground excavation, blasting rock and such. I mean, who knows?
And Utah Mike puts a good question out there. He's like, under the Mississippi, and I'm like,
You go
right?
deep enough. Yeah,
You go deep enough, you can go just about anywhere. But the other thing is like, what technology are they using to get there, and where's all the dirt going?
Yeah.
So there's
exactly.
all these
That's a
different
lot
factors to think about it. So it's like, okay, critical thinking, put the critical thinking hat on. Okay, maybe go down the rabbit hole for a little while, but don't get too distracted. But it's kind of a fun topic to check into.
Yeah.
Just like the bunkers and the rich guys buying out the bunkers and the old silos and building
Mhm.
down below and communities creating these things under there. I'm like, man, I don't want to live in a cave.
No,
It doesn't make any sense to me.
don't want to live in a bunker.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely not.
no way.
Yeah, speaking of technology, Scott, one of the crazy things about our current situation in the world right now is how fast AI is going. And I was listening to a podcaster today, and he made a really good point. He says, where in history do you have somebody who makes something, and then in the process of letting you know about what they made, they tell you how dangerous it is? Like, if you made a widget or a gadget, you wouldn't get on the commercial and say, don't buy this. It's totally dangerous and it will kill you, or, it'll chop your finger off if you buy this knife. So don't buy this knife, whatever, where how many of the people who were in charge of or have helped to or been a part of developing AI have come out like literally and said,
Mhm.
I'm a little
Yeah.
nervous about what this could do and where it could take our country and our people and how it could take over. I listened to another podcast today from a good buddy of mine, and he had that. Do you remember that X that it was on Twitter, X, whatever it is now? That lady, she was, I think I don't know what country she was from, but where she talks about transhumanism, and the end game is to like make us more digital and have us, connected, even with bioengineering and other stuff. Anyways, it went viral, and I think her name was Laura Abilene or something. Anyways, she was on this podcast talking about some of this stuff, and then it was another. I listened to a lot of podcasts throughout the day, but it was another podcast where this guy was like, "Dude, why would the people who make this come out and warn us against it if there wasn't something really there to worry about and be prepared for?" And whether it's some kind of singularity event or something else, I think it's important to be prepared and also be ready for if it does happen. Like, of course, there's great benefits to having new technology. In fact, I was super excited to kind of take advantage of some AI for some of my YouTube videos for my financial channel. And so I'm getting the benefit of it, but at the same time, it's like I want to pay attention to what these guys are saying about what they created and what they think might come of it if we're not careful. And between you, me, and the wall, and everybody else, like how many people, when they get a little bit of power, it's in the scriptures. When you get a little bit of power, it goes to your head and you start doing things you shouldn't. And so I just know that in the wrong hands, which it looks like some of the stuff is in the wrong hands, we're going to have something to deal with.
So it's funny because
Yes.
everything we look at, there's a truth and there's a lie behind, especially when you're listening to the media and listening to the world, right? They'll tell you a half truth to get your interest, right? And then fill it with lies. What's interesting is what are those lines that you guys keep seeing up in the sky? Have you seen those little white lines all over the sky? Have you ever thought about the CDC logo and how little sense it makes to look at it? It is a whole bunch of white lines across the blue sky.
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
There's CDC on it. And I look at that and I go, wow, that's kind of telling for where our world is and how those trails can lean into that's where it came from. That's all part of the plan. Maybe that's the delivery mechanism they've been using for years, not just to alter the weather. There's a weather modification, but there's also psychological effects of those things, health and wellness effects of those things. We're in a time and place in the world where there's more information flooding every avenue of information that you can look at. You've got everything at your fingertips. You've got more power in your little phone device than computing power than they had running the entire space operation back when they launched and landed on the moon, right?
Mhm.
And what are
Supposedly.
we doing? We're watching, yeah, right? We're
We
watching
landed on the moon,
funny
right?
funny cat memes instead. We're wasting our time on the weirdest stuff. Like, oh, who did the funniest floss video on TikTok? And oh, what's the new? There's some hamster trend. I don't even know what it means, but they're looking out their cars. What are we wasting our time on when we could be learning the most incredible things and finding truths? And now is the time to do it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Let's bring something else up that's been on the media an awful lot lately.
Yes.
What has been going on the past month or two that's been kind of driving the economy? The Taylor Swift economy, right? You've heard about that, right?
Yep.
That her tour has been propping up the economy. So, and I bring that up because I came across a couple of headlines here that, again, I'm hearing more about this every day. And when I'm hearing things like this, it's just we know that it's normalizing. Other people to hearing this that this is now normal, and there's nothing strange about it. It's I'll try not to say trigger words that'll get us Shadow Man or whatever. Okay, so here's a couple of headlines. Number of witches rises dramatically across U.S. as millennials reject Christianity. The witch population doubles as millennials turn to Satan. It is well known that Taylor Swift has announced herself that she is a witch. And
but she's a good witch.
There's no such
What does that even mean? Right?
Exactly. No such thing. So again, that's another thing that's just becoming more popular, and people are turning away from God and turning.
Somebody put it to me. Somebody put it in a way that was pretty logical, and for those of us who believe in Christ, we know that there's an enemy, and we have a belief system with faith that goes along with that. And there's people out there that don't, however, believe in God, right. and that's fine. And as long as you're good people and doing good things, and we're good. Like, we're going to be okay. The problem is that you have to realize that there are people out there, you may not believe it, but just realize there are people out there who do believe in the devil, and who do want to worship him, and who do want to follow what he says, as been evidenced by stuff like this. So, and they'll do things that are in line with what that belief is about. And so you just don't be blindsided when somebody says, something, and you're like, wait, what? Yeah. It's real for them. It's real. And so you just got to be aware of that. But for those of us who are really want to know and have a faith, it's even more real for us. Like, there's an enemy, and we need to do all that we can. Now, here's one thing too, is that I've learned this true, and this is true, that our energy and flows where our focus goes. And so if you're going to focus on all the bad things that are happening in life, that's what you're going to see. I just was reading a book called The Psychology of Money. And he talked about how in economies, it's easier to sell like all the stuff that's going wrong and bad than it is to say all the good things that are happening in the world, because we just love that. Like, as a human being, we kind of go towards the negative more than the positive. However, that's part of the reason why we're probably in a situation we're in. But if you take time to really say, you know what, I'm going to go build light instead of focusing on attacking the darkness. I'm going to go build light and build good things and build kindness and build pay it forwards and build good turn dailies and good, whatever you want to do, go build the light, go prepare and build that. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was talking to my dad. He's like, when I feel like I'm getting attacked by the enemy, I just imagine the light of Christ like engulfing me, and I just feel better. And I'm like, you know what? You can cast the devil off, through reading the scriptures that Christ did that a lot. That's true. Or you can just have so much light that the darkness can't stick around. And I love that. That's both work. And I was just like, you know what? That's a really powerful thing to do. And that's something that we need to do, is if we're going to build the light. If the darkness is going to continue to grow, let it. But let's go build light and so we have our places of safety to stick into and be a part of.
Yeah, I think a part about that I try to apply to my life is that I don't get too deep into these topics. I think it's important to know that they are issues, that these things are prevalent. We need to know how Satan works. We need to know what to avoid. But going too deep down those rabbit holes can be detrimental, I think, can affect my attitude. And so I like to kind of skim, right? Okay, I understand what's going on. And if I need to dig in on something, I'll dig in and learn a little bit more about it. But like you're saying, Paris, is if you get too deep down that dark road, you can become dark yourself. But I still think it is important to at least understand what's going on. And so that's really, I think, why we do what we do here. We're just skimming across these topics. We're not going deep into it. There are plenty of other YouTubers out there that go deep into these topics if you want to. I don't want to. And so that's why I don't here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's because they're mostly distractions, right? If they can keep us distracted, they can keep us spending where they want us to spend because we're a consumer nation. If they can keep us distracted, it keeps us from doing the things we should be doing to have a life of liberty and freedom, right? And if we're not focusing on protecting those rights and defending those rights, guess what? We lose those rights. How many rights have we lost over our lives because we didn't do anything about it? There is always going to be repercussions to everything that's happening, right? So if you get sucked into the craziness of the world, it's hard to get out.
Yep.
Right? A lot of people listening right now, you guys are coming from a place where you were distracted for a long time, and then you kind of woke up and you're like, I need to take more personal responsibility for myself. And that's why you became a prepper. And then those distractions, they've minimized a little bit in your life. But right now, in the time of the world where we are, it's like everything's getting bigger and louder, right? What happens in an argument when someone's losing because their argument is invalid? They get louder and louder, and then they start attacking you instead
Not
of the
issue.
argument.
Yeah.
Look at what's going on in the world. Look at what's
Same
going
thing.
on in the news. It's that same process.
Yeah. I mean, it even happened. There's a news. There's a headline right now about how, this year is a political year. We're going to have an election coming up in a few months, and there's a lot of stuff happening. And we don't have time to get into it, but one of the headlines was Nikki Haley bashes Trump. Well, that's not like how many. One of the reasons why politics is so frustrating is that instead of sharing what you are going to do, you spend all your time telling us what the other guy did wrong. Like I don't even know what you're about because all I hear from you is how this guy did all these bad things or lady or whatever. It's like, are we ever going to get somebody to represent us in our republic, which is supposed to be a democratic republic? Are we going to ever get somebody to represent us that actually is like, look, this is what I stand for. This is what I need to do. And this will move forward. I think that's one of the major reasons why Trump was so successful is that he didn't, sure, he bashed a little bit, but he stood up and said, this is what I'm going to go do. And he did it better than most have ever done it. And that's commendable. I can respect that. So it's like, okay. So this year, be watchful too. Be careful this year as you're listening to different political arguments back and forth and what's going on and what the fight's about, because that's another reality check. That's like, wait a minute. What is really happening behind the scenes? What's really going on? What can we really do to make sure that we can maintain our rights and our privileges? Because like you said, Scott, if you give those away, it's almost if you study history, when rights are given away, the only way to get them back is usually bloodshed.
Shedding of blood. Well, with that, I want to remind you guys, if you're at all if you're at all fed up with what's going on in the world, with supply chain, with buying only what's available from these Chinese manufacturers or overseas producers, and you want to bring those dollars back and you want to vote with those dollars, guys, check out our friends over at mylibertybox.com and /prepper talk. The reason I want to bring that up is that's something that we've done. We've switched some of our household purchases quite a bit, and I've actually been very surprised with the quality of goods that I can buy here. It's all American made, American sourced, and shipped locally. So you don't have to worry about the ports ever getting stuck and anything else going wrong. It's stuff that you're going to use on a month-to-month basis. So pull the money out of your Targets, out of your Walmarts, out of your Amazon, and bring it back to America. Now, continuing on, what do you guys think is the real, out of all the news things that are going on, what do you think is really going to affect us in the next few months?
Oh, that's a great question there, Scott.
I think one of the top things for me, for sure, is the immigration issue, like the border crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is so just legitimate, like scary, crazy that we're having so many people come across our border that aren't families. They're not children. It's military-aged men from all these countries that hate our guts. And it's just like, what are they planning? What are they going to do? We got sleeper cell potential. We got a bunch of just things that could be done, and and what's crazy too is they're coming to a city near you. You know what I mean? These guys are being shipped all over, and I just had an article that I saw about how our governor here in Utah is going to start sign something or talked about, hey, send them to us, and I'm like, we're like, no. So that's, to me, that's one big one anyways.
Yeah. My biggest concern right now, besides that, is I think we're on the very edge of another banking crisis. Mm-hmm. There will be one big final banking crisis before the dollar implodes and is replaced by CBDC or whatever. I don't know if that's happening now or if this is just going to be another step towards that. But we're getting there, and there's going to be some more chaos in the banking industry, if you want to call it that, with large banks and with small banks. I think more than anything, actually, here in March. I think it's really going to start to add up in March.
So I kind of agree, but I think it's a little bit further out. I think we'll see more banks failing in March. I don't think we'll see a big tip till mid to late summer, and then they'll be like, "Oh, we've got it fixed. Don't worry, we got it." And they'll say they got it fixed because it's an election year, and everything kind of fixes itself going into the election, and then post-election is when I'm like, it could go a little south. Yeah, kind of like the last time we had an election like this.
Yeah, I tend to think that we may go into a CBDC without really even knowing.
Wouldn't
we're kind of already there.
Wouldn't that be weird? You wake up one morning and you got cash in your pocket. No one will take it. Oh wait, it's already happened, right?
Yeah.
Now they're like, sorry, plastic only. Okay, then you wake up the next morning and your bank accounts are frozen because your social credit score hasn't started yet.
Whew. Go get your digital ID so you can get your social credit score and be tracked, and your bank account will work. Yeah, so many possibilities.
Well, I think this has been one of our more exciting news feed conversations. Reality check, guys. There's always going to be a story on the news. There's always going to be something crazy going on. There's always going to be, as our friend over here, Rockin' Ryan Olson said, there's always going to be distractions. And sometimes they're bigger and louder, and sometimes they're not as bad. But the more we're focused on doing good things and more we're focused on taking care of our families, taking care of our rights, the more we're going to get done in life. You'll never get a lot done if you're worried about all the fears and if you're focusing on all the fears. Those are the things that'll freeze you in action. So you can either fight, flight, or freeze. That's a normal reaction to all of life's stimulus. What are you going to choose to do? How are you going to do it? For me and my family, and I know the guys will all agree, we're going to stand strong, keep to the faith, keep on prepping, and keep on living the best we can with what we have.
Amen.
Any final thoughts, guys, on our live tonight?
I'm good.
Yep. Nope. I love what you said, dude. Just, and I shared it earlier. Build the light. Go and be the light. That's it.
Well, and the reality is it's not surviving. It's not just surviving if you're thriving. Thriving, if you got food and you got resources and you've got God, you can thrive through any trial. and you can choose to be that light. Go spread it. Go share the message of preparedness with your friends and family. Let them know how much sense it makes, especially this time in the economy. Tell them to take that tax return, that free loan they gave to the government. As soon as it comes in, cash it, go get some preps, maybe get some gold and silver, and tell them to tune in to Prepper Talk Radio. Thank you guys for being part of the Prepper Talk family. Make sure you like and subscribe. Smash those thumbs up. Thank you, Utah Mike. And we will catch you guys on the next live. See you Wednesday.
See you next week.
Take care.